Eat a steak and watch your blood sugar rise. No bread, no pasta, just meat. How is that possible? Today, I'll reveal the shocking truth about how your body turns protein into sugar and why this matters for keto and carnivore health. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Bates. I'm a metabolic health coach. This is my video on metabolic flexibility, rethinking nutritional foundations. Okay, let's get into it. Your body makes glucose from protein. Yeah. Eat a steak and watch your blood glucose rise. No carbohydrates consumed, no dietary glucose entering your system, yet glucose appears in your bloodstream as if summoned from thin air. This observation breaks conventional nutritional wisdom. Textbooks teach that gluconeogenesis operates on demand, producing glucose only when the body needs it. The process supposedly activates during carbohydrate scarcity, functioning as an emergency backup system. The evidence suggests otherwise. The chemical reality behind glucose production. Metabolism operates according to chemical principles, not biological preferences. When amino acids from protein digestion flood the bloodstream, they create substrate concentrations that drive biochemical reactions forward. Le Chatelier's principle governs this process. And if I got the French naming proper, I apologize. Chemical equilibrium shifts toward glucose production when gluconeogenic substrates become abundant. The liver responds to this chemical pressure by converting amino acids into glucose, regardless of immediate glucose demand. Traditional research confirms this reality. Gluconeogenesis contributes 54% of glucose production after 14 hours of fasting, rising to 84% after 42 hours. These numbers reveal gluconeogenesis as a primary metabolic pathway, not an emergency response. This process operates continuously. Substrate availability determines activity levels more than glucose demand. So protein creates complex hormonal responses. Protein consumption triggers simultaneous insulin and glucagon secretion. The dual hormonal response contradicts the simplified model where insulin suppresses glucose production. Research demonstrates that high-protein foods stimulate insulin to similar degrees as high-carbohydrate foods. Beef and fish release as much insulin as brown rice. Yet protein also stimulates glucagon, insulin's metabolic antagonist. This creates a unique physiological environment. Glucagon activates gluconeogenic enzymes like phosphoneopyruvate carboxylase kinase, PAPCK, that's a lot easier to say, and fructose 1,6 biophosphatase. These enzymes convert amino acids into glucose even while insulin attempts to suppress the process. The insulin to glucagon ratio determines net metabolic direction. When glucagon levels rise sufficiently, glucose production continues despite insulin presence. The chemical environment favors synthesis over storage. Absolute insulin levels matter for different functions. Anabolic processes like muscle protein synthesis, thyroid hormone production, and electrolyte balance require sufficient absolute insulin concentrations. These functions operate independently of glucagon levels. A person can maintain low insulin to glucagon ratios while preserving adequate absolute insulin for critical physiological processes. This explains why individuals follow low-carbohydrate diets, maintain normal thyroid function, and electrolyte balance. So where did this come from? Well, research biases help shape metabolic understanding. Most metabolic studies examine subjects consuming carbohydrate-rich diets. This research foundation creates systematic blind spots in our understanding of gluconeogenesis and metabolic adaptation. Carbohydrate-adapted individuals rely heavily on dietary glucose. Their gluconeogenesis operates minimally, appearing demand-driven because glucose demand rarely exceeds dietary supply. Researchers studying these populations naturally conclude that glucose production responds only to physiological need, not because it just happens. Low carbohydrate context reveals different metabolic realities. Fat adapted individuals demonstrate enhanced gluconeogenic efficiency, substrate recycling through gluconeogenesis, and altered hormonal environments that support continuous glucose production from non carbohydrate sources. These adaptations remain invisible in traditional research frameworks. Scientists miss the metabolic flexibility that emerges when dietary carbohydrates become scarce. The body transforms from glucose dependent to glucose producing, maintaining stable blood sugar through endogenous pathways. Studies on carnivorous animals support this perspective. Fish metabolism research shows that dietary carbohydrate supply does not affect gluconeogenic enzyme activities. Gluconeogenesis operates independently of carbohydrate intake, explaining consistent glycemic control without their dietary glucose. So, your metabolism is actually a chemical system. The body operates as a complex network of chemical reactions governed by concentration gradients, enzyme kinetics, and thermodynamic principles. Metabolic outcomes emerge from these interactions without conscious decision making or fuel preferences. Anthropomorphic thinking distorts metabolic understanding. Phrases like the body prefers glucose assign volation to biochemical processes. These processes respond to chemical pressures, not preferences. Alcohol metabolism illustrates this principle. When alcohol enters the system, it gets metabolized first, not because the body prefers it, but because the chemical environment favors its oxidation. Substrate availability and enzyme specificity determine metabolic priority. Plus, alcohol is actually a poison. Your body's trying to get rid of it, okay? So it does process that first. It doesn't prefer it. The same logic applies to gluconeogenesis. High amino acid concentrations create chemical pressure toward glucose production. Enzymes respond to substrate availability according to their kinetic properties, not biological preferences. This perspective reframes nutrition from preferences-based to chemistry-based understanding. Food provides molecular substrates that influence metabolic pathways through concentration effects and hormonal signaling. The body adapts its chemistry to available inputs. So let's rethink nutritional foundations. Supply-driven gluconeogenesis challenges fundamental nutritional assumptions. If the body efficiently produces glucose from protein and fat, dietary carbohydrates become conditionally essential rather than absolutely required. Well, actually, they become non-essential, quite honestly. The calorie-centric model oversimplifies metabolic complexity. Mass balance and hormonal regulation matter more than energy calculations. Different substrates create different metabolic environments through their effects on insulin, glucagon, and enzymatic pathways. Metabolic flexibility emerges as a central concept. Humans adapt to varying dietary inputs by shifting fuel utilization patterns. Low carbohydrate adaptation increases gluconeogenesis, fat oxidation, and ketone production, while sparing muscle protein and maintaining glucose homeostasis. This adaptation requires evolutionary pressures, where carbohydrate availability varied seasonally and geographically. The capacity for efficient glucose production from non-carbohydrate sources provided survival advantages during periods of plant food scarcity. Okay? Modern nutrition science must account for this metabolic flexibility. Research conducted exclusively on carbohydrate adapted populations misses critical aspects of human metabolic potential. Dietary guidelines based on incomplete metabolic understanding may not serve optimal health outcomes. So let's talk about some practical implications for metabolic health. Understanding your metabolism as a dynamic chemical system empowers informed nutritional choices. Food quality and timing influence hormonal responses and substrate availability more than caloric content alone. Protein consumption creates stable glucose environments through balanced insulin and glucagon secretion. This hormonal profile supports both glucose production for essential tissues and anabolic processes for muscle maintenance and growth. Fat-adapted individuals demonstrate remarkable metabolic efficiency. They maintain normal glucose levels through endogenous production while using fat and ketones as primary fuel sources. This metabolic state reduces dependency on dietary carbohydrates and may offer therapeutic benefit for various metabolic disorders. The key insight involves recognizing metabolism as process rather than fixed state. Daily choices in nutrition, fasting, movement, and sleep influence metabolic pathways and outcomes. Chemical principles govern these responses, creating predictable patterns that individuals can leverage for health optimization. Substrate quality matters more than quantity in many contexts. Providing appropriate molecular building blocks and hormonal signals supports metabolic flexibility and adaptive capacity. This approach emphasizes biochemical function over caloric restriction. The current dietary paradigms require re-evaluation, right, in light of supply-driven metabolic understanding. The capacity for efficient glucose production from protein and fat suggests that carbohydrate requirements may be lower than commonly believed, if not completely not needed, right? Particularly for metabolically flexible individuals. This metabolic framework offers hope for addressing modern chronic diseases linked to metabolic dysfunction by working with rather than against natural biochemical processes. Individuals can potentially restore metabolic health through informed dietary and lifestyle interventions. All right? So, what we get to is, if you eat a carnivore, ketogenic or carnivore diet, which is primarily animal-based, get very little, if any, carbohydrates in your diet, your body, especially if it's fat-adapted, will produce all the carbohydrates it needs from the supply of protein resources you have. This also means you got to think about, should you be eating excess protein? Your body only needs so much protein, right? And if you're eating too much protein, you're providing a substrate of a bunch of amino acids that your body will turn into glucose. Normally never enough to really worry you in terms of getting diabetes or anything from that. But it's still, if you're a former diabetic and you're trying to keep your glucose down, that's worrying. So keep your glucose or your protein intake at appropriate levels so that you don't produce extra carbohydrates and you get extra blood sugar. Okay? If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the appropriate section. Love to hear from you guys. We are, of course, building a community here. If you have something you want me to talk about in an upcoming video, let me know so I can do a video around that for you to let you know. Because if you have a question on it, I'm sure others do as well. And also, look in the description for a link for my group coaching platform. It's $10 a month. There's all kinds of specials you get with the group coaching platform. Look for a video that describes it in a little more detail. I'll be producing a new one pretty much every week telling you what's new in there. It's well worth looking into. And you get the first 7 days for free to make sure that's worth what you want to. It's only $10 a month, guys. Take a look at it. All right? Thank you very much. And if you haven't done so, like this video, please. Subscribe to the channel. Share it with a friend. Get notified about new ones. It helps the channel a great deal, so thank you in advance. And also, have a great day because you're going to help other people. Appreciate it.